My father's funeral was 3 days ago. 3 goddamn days. The smell of lilies and formaldehyde still clung to my suit jacket, a sick reminder of the gaping hole he'd left in my life, in our family, in the company he'd bled for, Hayes Innovations. His legacy. Our legacy. Or so I thought. Turns out, my older brother, Ryan Hayes, Mr. Perfect, Mr. Golden Boy, Mr. God's gift to business, had a different interpretation. His interpretation involved him on a throne and me in a goddamn prison cell. He didn't just want the company. He wanted me gone, erased, destroyed, and he almost pulled it off, the calculating, cold-blooded son of a bitch. If it wasn't for Dad always knew Ryan was a snake in a Savile Row suit. He just didn't realize how deep the venom ran until it was almost too late for me. But Dad, even from the grave, had one last trick up his sleeve. A nuke. And Ryan was about to walk right into the blast radius. The emergency board meeting. Ryan, in his infinite wisdom and newfound leadership, called it himself. Less than a goddamn week after we buried our father. Classy. Real classy, Ryan. I walked into that sterile, mahogany-lined conference room, the one where Dad used to hold court, his laughter and his booming voice still echoing in the goddamn walls if you listened hard enough, and I could feel it instantly. The ice. Every single pair of eyes in that room, old family, friends, longtime board members, people who bounced me on their knee when I was a kid, they were all on me. And not in a good way. Cold, accusatory. Like I was something they'd found stuck to the bottom of their expensive Italian leather shoes. Ryan sat at the head of the table. Dad's chair. Dad's goddamn chair. Looking for all the world like a grieving son. A responsible heir. Forced to make a terrible, necessary, heartbreaking decision. The bastard was a hell of an actor. Always had been. He could cry on cue and then slit your throat with a smile. Gentlemen, Ryan began, his voice thick with that phony, solemn grief he'd been peddling to anyone who would listen all week. His eyes, those cold, calculating blue eyes, so like Dad's but utterly devoid of his warmth, flicked to me for a fraction of a second. And Ethan, he gave me a curt, almost pitying little nod. Like I was the one to be pitied here, the goddamn nerve of him. As you all know, our father's untimely passing has left a significant void in our hearts and in the leadership of Hayes Innovations. And with that void comes a great and very grave responsibility. He paused, letting the drama hang heavy in the air, savoring his moment on center stage, the prick. Unfortunately, he continued, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial, almost mournful whisper that made my stomach churn. In reviewing his recent affairs, his final projects, some deeply disturbing information has come to light. Information that, I must confess, has shaken me to my very core. Information regarding my own brother, Ethan. My stomach clenched into a tight, painful knot. What the hell was this? What fresh bullshit was he about to unleash? Ryan sighed. A masterpiece of feigned reluctance, of brotherly anguish. He slid a thick, official-looking folder across the polished mahogany table. It landed in front of Mr. Henderson, Dad's oldest friend and the longest-serving board member, with a soft, ominous thud. These documents, gentlemen, Ryan said, his voice now laced with a carefully calibrated sadness, they suggest a pattern. A very troubling, very clear pattern of significant financial irregularities. Unauthorized fund transfers, highly questionable expenditures, all originating from accounts and projects under Ethan's direct oversight. Financial irregularities? I barely had signing authority on the goddamn office coffee fund. What in the bloody hell was he talking about? My mind raced, trying to make sense of it, but it was like trying to catch smoke. And then, Ryan continued, his voice dropping even lower as if he could barely bring himself to utter the words, there's this. He produced another, even thicker set of papers. Emails. Stacks of them, printed out. Supposedly from my company email account, my official Hayes Innovations email, to our biggest goddamn competitor, Titan Corp, detailing in excruciating specificity our upcoming product launch schedule, our new pricing strategy, our goddamn patented trade secrets. He wasn't just accusing me of being bad with money. He was accusing me of corporate treason, of trying to sink the company our father had poured his entire life into. This is absolute unadulterated bullshit, Ryan, I exploded, a volcano of rage and disbelief erupting inside me. I jumped to my feet, my chair scraping back against the expensive flooring with a raw, ugly sound that echoed the ugliness of his lies in the suddenly silent room. Those emails are fake, forgeries. I never sent them. I would never betray this company, Dad's company, my company. Ryan just looked at me, his eyes, those cold, reptilian eyes, filled with that familiar, condescending pity that always made me want to punch him in his perfect, lying teeth. Ethan, please, he said, his voice soft, almost gentle, which somehow made it even more infuriating. I know this is difficult for you to hear. We all know you've been under a considerable amount of pressure lately. Grieving. Perhaps you weren't thinking clearly. Perhaps you were influenced. He turned his gaze to the board members, those old, stuffy, gray-haired bastards who'd known Dad for decades, who'd watched me grow up from a snot-nosed kid into a man, but who now looked at me like I was something vile, something rotten, something they'd found festering in the dark under a rock. Gentlemen, Ryan said, his voice resonating with false sincerity, I didn't want to believe it either. Believe me, my own brother. It's heartbreaking. But the evidence, I'm afraid it's undeniable. It paints a very clear, very disturbing picture of an employee, a family member who has actively and perhaps even criminally worked against the best interests, against the very survival of Hayes Innovations. Criminally. He actually used the word criminally. My own goddamn brother was trying to send me to prison. For what? For his insatiable ambition? For his sick, twisted, lifelong need to be the only heir apparent, the undisputed king of the goddamn castle? The room was spinning. I felt like I was going to puke. I looked around at those stony, judgmental, unforgiving faces. They believed him. Of course they goddamn believed him. Ryan, the golden boy, the responsible one, the one who always said and did the right thing, at least in public. And me, Ethan, the creative type, the sensitive one, the one who never quite fit their rigid corporate mold, the easy scapegoat, the perfect villain for Ryan's little corporate coup d'etat. "This is a setup, Ryan," I yelled, my voice cracking now, the rage giving way to a desperate, sickening wave of disbelief and despair. "You're framing me. You know I didn't do this. You know it." "Ethan," he said, his voice now firm, authoritative, the mask of the grieving son completely gone, replaced by the cold, hard face of the decisive, ruthless CEO. "I understand you're upset, naturally, but the board has a fiduciary duty to this company, to our employees, to our father's legacy." Oh, the goddamn hypocrisy of him even uttering Dad's name in this context. "We've already alerted our legal counsel, and I'm afraid, given the potential severity of these breaches, we've also felt it our unfortunate but necessary duty to inform the authorities." The authorities. The cops. He'd actually really called the goddamn cops on me. His own brother. My blood didn't just run cold, it froze solid. This wasn't just about the company anymore. This wasn't just about money or power. This was about my freedom. My entire goddamn life. He wasn't just trying to oust me, he was trying to erase me. You absolute bastard," I whispered, the fight, the fury, suddenly draining out of me, leaving me hollow, empty, shaking. How could he do this? How could anyone do this? Let alone their own flesh and blood, the brother they'd grown up with. The board members started murmuring amongst themselves, carefully, pointedly, avoiding my gaze. Old man Henderson, Dad's lifelong golfing buddy, the one who used to slip me $5 bills and ruffle my hair when I was a kid, wouldn't even look in my goddamn direction. Betrayal. It was everywhere, thick and suffocating and tasting like ash in my mouth. Ryan stood up then, his posture straight, his expression a carefully crafted mask of solemn bullshit regret. "Effective immediately," he announced, his voice ringing with a false, unearned authority that made me want to vomit all over their expensive mahogany table. "Ethan Hayes is suspended from all duties and responsibilities at Hayes Innovations, pending a full and thorough internal and external investigation. His access to all company property, including his office, his computer, and all corporate accounts, will be immediately revoked. Security will escort him from the premises." Security. I was going to be escorted from the company my own father had built, the company that bore my goddamn family name, like a common criminal, like a piece of trash being taken out. And my own brother, my loving, caring, backstabbing older brother, was going to stand there and watch it happen, his face a perfect, pious mask of solemn bullshit regret. I didn't say another word. What was the goddamn point? They'd already tried and convicted me in their little corporate kangaroo court. I just turned, my legs feeling like they were filled with wet cement, and walked towards the door, the crushing weight of their silent, damning, uniformed judgment pressing down on me, suffocating me. As I reached the hallway, just outside the boardroom, Ryan's voice, softer now, almost a sibilant whisper, but laced with a pure, unadulterated, triumphant venom that was far more terrifying than any shout, stopped me cold. He'd followed me out, just to stick the knife in a little deeper. "Don't worry, little brother," he said, his breath practically on my neck, close enough for only me to hear his poisonous words. "I'll take excellent care of our company. And don't even bother fighting this. You'll lose. You always do, don't you?" That smug, condescending, arrogant son of a bitch, he thought he had me. He thought he'd finally, definitively won. He thought he could just waltz in, steal my birthright, destroy my life, frame me for goddamn treason, and face absolutely no consequences. He was wrong. So, goddamn wrong. Because what Ryan, in his boundless arrogance, in his greedy, blind, all-consuming ambition, didn't know, what none of those judgmental old fools on the board knew, was that our father, the man he was so callously, so publicly disrespecting, the man whose hard-earned legacy he was so gleefully trying to pervert and steal, hadn't been a complete goddamn fool. Dad had seen the darkness in Ryan. He'd known about the ambition that curdled into something ugly, something dangerous, and he'd prepared for it, just in case. He'd left me something, a lifeline. A goddamn nuclear option. Hidden away, a final fuck you from beyond the grave, waiting for exactly this moment, waiting for Ryan to finally show his true monstrous colors. I walked out of that gleaming steel and glass building, the one that bore my family name, feeling like I'd been kicked in the gut by a goddamn mule, like my whole world had just been ripped out from under me and stomped into the dirt. The city air, usually so vibrant, so full of promise, felt cold, indifferent, hostile. I was alone, accused, betrayed by my own blood, my reputation in tatters. My future, a terrifying, uncertain void. Ryan had played his hand, and it was a brutal, devastating one. But as I stood there on that cold, unforgiving sidewalk, the cacophony of city noise, a dull, meaningless roar in my ears, a new feeling, a different feeling, started to burn through the shock, through the despair, through the crushing weight of injustice. A cold, hard, unshakable, diamond-sharp resolve. This wasn't over. Oh no. This was just the goddamn intermission. Ryan Hayes wanted a war? Fine. He was about to get one he'd never forget. He thought he was a king, secure on his stolen throne. He was about to find out he was just a pawn in a much, much bigger, much deadlier game. And I, Ethan Hayes, the screw-up, the disappointment, the criminal, was about to flip the whole goddamn board. End of chapter 1. approximately 2,700 words. This chapter establishes the immediate, shocking betrayal by Ryan, the high stakes involving the family company and potential criminal charges, and ends on Ethan's defiant resolve, hinting at the secret weapon his father left him. Being escorted out of my own father's company by a beefy security guard who looked like he moonlighted as a bouncer for the Hells Angels, that was a new low. Even for me, the designated family screw-up. Ryan, my loving brother, hadn't even had the goddamn decency to look me in the eye as they frog-marched me past his new corner office, Dad's old office, his smug, triumphant smirk probably reflected in the polished glass. Bastard. He thought he'd won. Thought he just erased me from Hayes Innovations, from our family's legacy, with a few faked emails and a boardroom full of easily manipulated old fools. He had no goddamn idea what was about to hit him. The next few days were a special kind of hell. My company credit cards? Canceled. My access to the corporate servers, where all my actual project files were stored? Revoked. My work email? Shut down. Ryan was being thorough, I'll give him that. Thoroughly evil. The authorities he'd so piously claimed to have informed hadn't actually come knocking on my door yet, which was a small mercy, but the threat hung over my head like a goddamn guillotine. Every siren I heard, every unexpected knock, sent a jolt of pure, undiluted terror through me. And Sarah, my fiancée, Sarah Davis, the woman I was supposed to spend the rest of my life with, she was distant, confused, scared. Ryan, the master manipulator, had obviously been in her ear, whispering his poison, painting me as some kind of corporate Benedict Arnold, a desperate, failing executive who tried to sell out the family business to save his own skin. Ethan, I don't know what to believe, she'd said, her voice small and trembling when I'd finally gotten her on the phone after hours of her calls going straight to voicemail. Ryan had probably advised her not to talk to me. For her safety, the goddamn nerve. Ryan showed me the emails, they looked so real, and the financial reports, he said you were siphoning money. That Dad was heartbroken before he... There lies, Sarah, all of it. I'd yelled, frustration and despair warring within me. Ryan faked them. He's framing me. He wants the company. He wants me out. Can't you see that? But she couldn't. Or wouldn't. Ryan had been her friend too for years. He was charming, convincing, he was the golden boy, and I was just Ethan. The one who always seemed to be messing things up. I need some time, Ethan, she'd whispered. I need to think. Then she'd hung up. And just like that, another part of my world had crumbled. Ryan wasn't just stealing my company, he was stealing my goddamn future. Stealing Sarah. I was alone. Truly alone. My reputation in tatters. My career, a smoking ruin. My love life on life support. And the threat of actual prison time looming over me like a dark, heavy cloud. There were moments, dark, desperate moments in the dead of night in my too empty apartment where I actually considered just giving up, letting Ryan win, crawling into a bottle and staying there. What was the point of fighting when the whole goddamn world, including the woman I loved, already thought I was guilty? Then I remembered Dad's letter. The one he'd left me years ago, tucked away in an old, locked strongbox in his study. A box he'd given me the only key to on my 21st birthday. For a rainy day, son, he'd said, his eyes unusually serious. Or for when the snakes finally show their fangs. Trust your gut, Ethan, and trust this. It might be the only thing that saves you. Snakes. He'd known. Even back then, he'd known about Ryan. About the darkness lurking beneath that perfect, polished veneer. I hadn't thought about that box in years. It was buried deep in my closet, under a pile of old college textbooks and forgotten dreams. But now it felt like my only goddamn hope. My hands were shaking as I dragged it out, the old metal cool and heavy in my grasp. The key, thankfully, was still on my keychain. With a click that sounded deafeningly loud in the sudden silence of my apartment, the lock sprang open. Inside, it wasn't money, it wasn't stocks or bonds, it was Dad, his essence. A collection of seemingly random items. An old, worn copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, his favorite book. A faded photograph of him and Mom, young and smiling on their honeymoon. A single, perfectly preserved, pressed wildflower, the kind Mom used to pick on their anniversary hikes. And then, at the very bottom, under a layer of his old, ridiculously patterned silk ties, was a thick, sealed manila envelope, addressed to me. In Dad's familiar spiky handwriting, Ethan. For emergencies only. When all else fails, trust no one but yourself. And Sarah Davis, if she proves true. My breath hitched. Sarah Davis. He'd mentioned Sarah, my Sarah. Had Dad seen something in her, a strength, a loyalty, that even I was starting to doubt now, and trust no one but yourself. That was a clear warning. About Ryan. About everyone else who was so quick to believe his lies. With trembling fingers, I ripped open the envelope. Inside, two things. First, a letter. Shorter this time. More direct. More urgent. Ethan, it began, no preamble, no gentle let-in. If you are reading this, it means Ryan has finally made his move. I always knew this day might come, son. Your brother? Hi. He has a darkness in him. A hunger. I tried to guide him, to temper it. I failed. He sees Hayes Innovations not as a legacy, but as a prize. And he will do... My blood ran cold. Dad had spelled it out. He'd known years ago what Ryan was capable of, what he was planning. The letter continued, outlining Dad's suspicions about Ryan's creative accounting over the years, his too close relationships with certain board members, his subtle but persistent attempts to undermine Dad's own decisions. He's patient, Ethan, and he's ruthless. He will try to discredit you, to isolate you, to break you. He will use lies, half-truths, anything he can to paint you as the villain. Do not let him. And then the final chilling paragraph. I have left you tools, son. Not just my old woodworking tools, tools to fight him. In the accompanying device, you will find insurance. My insurance against Ryan's ambition. Use it wisely, use it carefully, and use it to save what's left of our family and yourself. I love you, Ethan. Make me proud. E. Accompanying device? I looked back in the envelope, and there it was. A small, innocuous-looking USB flash drive. Black, unmarked, my secret weapon, my father's nuke. My hands were shaking so bad, I almost dropped it. What the hell was on this thing? What kind of insurance had Dad left me? I plugged it into my laptop, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The drive opened. A single, password-protected, encrypted folder. Of course. Dad was nothing if not thorough. And a little paranoid. Turns out, with good goddamn reason. The password. What was the password? Trust no one but yourself. And Sarah Davis, if she proves true. Was that a hint? I tried Sarah. Nope. Sarah Davis. Nope. Proved true. Nothing. My frustration mounted. This was a goddamn treasure hunt, and my life was on the line. Then it hit me. That wildflower. The one Mom loved. The one Dad always picked for her. A mountain laurel. I typed it in. Mountain Laurel 1985. The year they got married. Access granted. My breath hitched. The folder opened. And what I saw made my blood run colder than a witch's kiss in a blizzard. It wasn't just one thing. It was everything. Years of it. Dad had been collecting evidence against Ryan for goddamn years. Secretly. Meticulously. There were audio recordings. Grainy, sure, but clear enough. Ryan talking to shady consultants, discussing ways to restructure company assets that sounded suspiciously like embezzlement. Ryan bad-mouthing Dad to board members, subtly planting seeds of doubt about Dad's competence, his old-fashioned ways. Ryan, in what sounded like a drunken rant to one of his asshole buddies, complaining about how Dad was holding him back, how he deserved to be running the company, how he couldn't wait for the old man to kick the bucket. There were scanned documents, offshore bank account statements in Ryan's name with inexplicable large deposits, copies of altered invoices, internal memos that Dad had clearly marked as suspicious, a whole goddamn litany of Ryan's deceit, his greed, his treachery, and then the kicker. The one that made me actually gasp out loud, a video file, dated just 6 months before Dad died. Around the time Ryan had discovered my supposed treason. It was security footage from a hidden camera in Dad's own office. Dad must have planted it himself, suspecting Ryan was up to something. The video showed Ryan late at night when he thought no one was around. He was at Dad's computer, and he was fabricating those emails. The ones that supposedly showed me selling out the company. I watched, horrified, as my own brother, my own flesh and blood, expertly, callously typed out those damning lies, routing them through a proxy server to make them look like they came from my IP address, then CCing himself so he could discover them later. He even practiced my goddamn signature on a piece of scrap paper. He hadn't just framed me after Dad died. He'd been planning it while Dad was still alive. He'd been setting me up for months, waiting for his chance. Dad's death hadn't been a tragedy for Ryan. It had been an opportunity. I felt sick. Physically, violently sick. This wasn't just ambition. This wasn't just greed. This was monstrous, pathological. My own brother had planned to destroy me, to send me to prison, to steal everything, all while playing the part of the grieving son, the responsible heir. But Dad had known. Dad had seen it coming. And he left me this arsenal, this goddamn nuclear bomb. The rage I felt before, it was nothing compared to this. This was a cold, hard, righteous fury. A fury that burned away all the fear, all the despair. Ryan wanted a war? Fine. He was about to get a goddamn apocalypse, and I was going to be the one riding the pale horse. I saved everything, copied it to 3 different encrypted drives, uploaded it to a secure cloud server only I knew the password to. Then, I started to think, really think, how to use this. How to deploy Dad's nuke for maximum goddamn impact. Just handing it over to the cops? Tops number. Too easy, too clean. Ryan deserved more than just a quiet arrest. He deserved to be exposed, publicly humiliated, just like he tried to do to me. He needed to have his perfect golden boy image shattered into a million goddamn pieces in front of everyone who'd ever looked up to him, everyone who'd ever believed his lies. Especially Sarah, and especially those smug, judgmental bastards on the board of Hayes Innovations. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. My heart did that stupid little flip-flop thing it always did when I saw her name, even now, even after everything. Ethan, can we talk? Really talk? I'm so confused. Ryan said, there's more evidence against you, that the police are building a strong case. Is it true? More evidence? Of course. Ryan was probably fabricating new bullshit as we spoke. But her confusion, that was an opening. A tiny one, but an opening nonetheless. And Sarah Davis, if she proves true, Dad's words, Sarah? I texted back. Yes, we can talk, but not on the phone and not alone. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m., the old coffee shop by the park, and bring your laptop. There's something I need to show you, something that will explain everything, something that will prove once and for all who the real monster in this family is. The trap was set. Ryan thought he was the hunter. He had no idea he was about to walk right into my goddamn snare. And this time, there would be no escape. The old coffee shop by the park. Neutral ground. Or as neutral as anything could be in this goddamn Twisted Family saga. I got there early, a knot of ice and fire coiling in my gut. This was it. The first real step in taking Ryan down. And it all hinged on Sarah. On whether she was still my Sarah, somewhere deep down under all the lies and manipulation Ryan had undoubtedly piled on her. And Sarah Davis, if she proves true, Dad's words. I clung to them like a drowning man to a life raft. She walked in exactly at 10, looking haunted, pale, dark circles under her beautiful eyes. My heart ached for her, even as a part of me still screamed in betrayal. Ryan had done a number on her, that was clear. She saw me, hesitated for a split second, then walked over to my small corner table, her movement stiff, uncertain. Ethan, she said, her voice barely a whisper. She didn't sit, just stood there, clutching her purse like it was a shield. Sarah, I said, trying to keep my own voice even, trying to project a calm I was a million miles from feeling. Thanks for coming, please, sit. She did, perching on the edge of the worn vinyl chair like a frightened bird, ready to take flight. Ryan said, he said to please have more evidence, she began, her eyes darting around the coffee shop, everywhere but at me. He said they're close to making an arrest. Ethan, what did you do? There it was again, that assumption of my guilt. Ryan's poison, still working its magic. What did I do, Sarah? I kept my voice low, but there was a new edge to it now. The edge of Dad's goddamn nuke sitting heavy and ready in my laptop bag. Or what did Ryan do? What has he been doing to both of us? To our father's memory? To this entire family? For years? She flinched. Don't talk about Ryan like that. He's trying to protect the company. He's trying to do what Dad would have wanted. Protect the company? My laugh was harsh, bitter. It drew a few curious glances from the other patrons. I didn't give a damn. Oh, he's protecting something all right, Sarah. He's protecting his own greedy, lying ass. And Dad? Dad would be spinning in his goddamn grave if he knew what Ryan was doing in his name? I reached into my bag, pulled out my laptop, opened it, booted it up. My hands were surprisingly steady. The cold fury inside me was a strangely calming force. You said Ryan showed you things, Sarah. Showed you who I really am. Well, now it's my turn. I'm going to show you who he really is. Who my brother, your dear supportive friend Ryan, truly is, when he thinks no one is watching. And her eyes were wide now, a mixture of fear and a dawning, reluctant curiosity. She didn't try to stop me. I didn't start with the financial stuff. That was for the board, for the cops. For Sarah, it needed to be personal. It needed to cut through Ryan's bullshit on a level she couldn't ignore. I started with the audio recordings. Ryan shit-talking Dad to his asshole buddies. Ryan complaining about me, about my lack of ambition, my artistic delusions. Ryan sounding for all the world like a spoiled, petulant child who couldn't stand not being the center of the goddamn universe. Then I played the video, the one from Dad's hidden office camera. Ryan, late at night, hunched over Dad's computer, his face illuminated by the screen's glow, meticulously, callously fabricating those emails, the ones that had destroyed my career, the ones that had destroyed us. I watched Sarah's face as she watched my brother, her friend, systematically trying to frame me for treason. The color drained from her cheeks, her hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp. Her eyes, when she finally looked up at me, were wide with a horrified disbelief that for the first time felt genuine. No, she whispered, shaking her head slowly. No, that can't be. Ryan wouldn't. He couldn't. Oh, he could, Sarah, I said, my voice flat, devoid of triumph. Just a cold, hard statement of fact. He could, and he did. And this is just the goddamn appetizer. There's more, so much more. I showed her the offshore bank accounts, the altered invoices, the evidence of Ryan siphoning money from Hayes Innovations for years, building his own little secret empire while playing the part of the dutiful, responsible son. I showed her Dad's final letter, his warning about Ryan, his plea for me to fight. By the time I was done, Sarah was openly weeping. Not the fake manipulative tears Ryan and his mother, another piece of work, but that's a story for another day, were so good at. These were real, gut-wrenching, heartbreaking. The tears of a woman who had just had her entire world, her entire understanding of the people she trusted, viciously, brutally ripped apart. I believed him, Ethan, she sobbed, her voice thick with shame and regret. He was so convincing. He showed me those emails. He said you'd confessed. He said he was trying to protect me from you. He's a liar, Sarah, I said, my voice softer now, the anger momentarily eclipsed by a wave of pity for her. She was a victim in this too, in a way, a pawn in Ryan's sick, twisted game. He's a manipulative, narcissistic sociopath who would burn down the whole goddamn world if it meant he got to rule over the ashes. She looked up at me, her eyes pleading. What? What are you going to do? I'm going to do what Dad asked me to do, Sarah, I said, my resolve hardening again. I'm going to save his company. I'm going to clear my name. And I'm going to make damn sure Ryan Hayes never hurts anyone ever again. I paused. The question is, Sarah, are you with me or are you still with him? And Sarah Davis, if she proves true, Dad's words again. This was her moment, her choice. She didn't hesitate. Not for a second. The tears were still there, but something new had ignited in her eyes. A spark, a fire, the same fire that was burning in me. I'm with you, Ethan, she said, her voice trembling but firm. 100%. That bastard. He's not getting away with this. Not anymore. Proved true. Thank you, Dad. The next step, the board. Ryan had called an emergency follow-up meeting for that very afternoon, probably to deliver the final nail in my coffin, to present his new evidence, more fabricated bullshit, no doubt, and demand my official termination and probably my arrest. He had no idea what was waiting for him. Sarah insisted on coming with me. She said she owed it to me, owed it to Dad's memory, owed it to herself. We walked into that boardroom together. Ryan was already there, at the head of the table, Dad's chair, looking smug and self-satisfied, like a fat cat who just swallowed the goddamn canary. His eyes widened in surprise when he saw Sarah with me, then narrowed into that familiar venomous glare. The other board members, Henderson included, looked uncomfortable, shuffling papers, avoiding our gaze. Well, 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 Ryan began, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Look what the cat dragged in, and brought a friend. How touching. Decided to come and face the music, little brother? Ready to confess your sins? Oh, there's going to be a confession, all right, Ryan, I said, my voice calm, steady. I placed Dad's USB drive on the polished mahogany table. It landed with a small, decisive click that seemed to echo in the sudden, tense silence. Just not mine. I didn't need to say much more. David Lee, my new lawyer, the junkyard dog Miss Diaz had promised, and then some had already, very discreetly, provided copies of Dad's insurance policy to every single board member and to the company's general counsel an hour before the meeting. He'd also very helpfully CC'd the district attorney's office and the SEC, just for good measure. As Ryan launched into his prepared speech, his well-rehearsed litany of my supposed crimes, my betrayals, my incompetence, I watched the faces of the board members. Slowly, one by one, their expressions began to change. From stern disapproval aimed at me, to confusion, then to dawning horror, and finally to a cold, hard, unforgiving fury. A fury directed squarely at Ryan. Mr. Henderson, Dad's old golfing buddy, was the first to crack. He stood up, his face pale, his hands trembling. Ryan, he said, his voice hoarse. This video, these recordings, are they authentic? Ryan, mid-sentence about my embezzlement, faltered. He looked confused. Video? What video? What are you talking about? He hadn't seen it yet. Oh, this was gonna be good. The video, Ryan, I said, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. Of you, in Dad's office, late at night, fabricating those emails, the ones that supposedly prove my treason. Or perhaps you'd prefer to discuss the audio recordings, the ones where you're plotting to defraud the company, or maybe the ones where you're wishing Dad would just hurry up and die? The color drained from Ryan's face. He looked like he'd just been poleaxed. He stared at me, then at the suddenly hostile faces of the board members, then back at me, his mouth opening and closing like a beached fish. For the first time in his goddamn golden boy life, Ryan Hayes was speechless. It was beautiful. The rest, as they say, is history. The board meeting turned into an impromptu interrogation of Ryan. His lies crumbled under the weight of Dad's meticulous evidence. His bluster deflated into pathetic, stammering denials. His carefully constructed world of deceit imploded, spectacularly, in front of everyone he'd ever tried to impress, everyone he'd ever manipulated. Sarah, to her credit, stood by me, calm and composed, occasionally interjecting with a quiet, damning confirmation of Ryan's manipulative tactics, his lies about me, his attempts to control her. Her testimony, coming from someone Ryan had so clearly targeted and fooled, was devastating. By the end of the meeting, Ryan Hayes wasn't just suspended. He was fired, unceremoniously, publicly. The board voted unanimously to terminate his employment, to strip him of all titles and benefits, and to cooperate fully with all ongoing and future legal investigations, which, thanks to David Lee and Dad's foresight, were already well underway. Ryan didn't say a word as security, real security this time, not the ones he called on me, escorted him from the building. He just looked broken, defeated. A hollow shell of the arrogant golden boy bastard he'd been just hours before. Good. Let him rot. The weeks and months that followed were a whirlwind. The DA's office and the SEC launched full-scale investigations into Ryan's activities at Hayes Innovations. The evidence Dad had collected was irrefutable. Ryan was charged with multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, forgery, and even obstruction of justice for trying to frame me. His trial was a media circus. The golden boy of Hayes Innovations revealed as a common criminal, a greedy, backstabbing sociopath. He was convicted on all counts, sentenced to 10 to 15 years in a state penitentiary. No parole, his perfect life, his brilliant future, all gone, poof, up in smoke. Just like he tried to do to mine. Hayes Innovations? It took a hit, no doubt. The scandal was messy, but under new leadership, a combination of some of the more ethical old guard, like Mr. Henderson, who was deeply, profoundly ashamed of his initial blindness, and some fresh blood I helped bring in, we started to rebuild. To heal. To restore Dad's true legacy, one of integrity, innovation, and goddamn hard work, not lies and deceit. And Sarah, we didn't get our fairy tale wedding, not right away. The trust, once broken, takes time to mend. A lot of time, a lot of therapy for both of us. But we were talking again. Really talking. Rebuilding. Slowly. Carefully. She was dealing with her own guilt, her own trauma from Ryan's manipulation. But she was strong, and she was true. Just like Dad had hoped. Maybe, just maybe, there was still a future for us. A different future than the one we'd planned, but a future nonetheless. One built on honesty. And a shared understanding of just how dark and twisted the human heart, even the heart of a brother, can be. I still visit Dad's grave sometimes. I tell him what's been happening, tell him about the company, about Sarah, about Ryan, and I thank him. Thank him for seeing the truth. Thank him for believing in me even when I didn't believe in myself. Thank him for leaving me that goddamn nuke. He didn't just save his company, he saved my life. My brother, the bastard, tried to frame me, tried to steal everything. He didn't know Dad had already armed me for the war. And in the end, justice, true justice, finally blessedly prevailed. Ryan wanted to be king. Now, he's just another inmate, another forgotten number, rotting in a cell, paying the price for his greed, his betrayal, his spectacular, self-inflicted downfall. And me? I'm finally free. And that, my friends, is a hell of a lot better than any goddamn inheritance.